Welcome to The New Sound, where we develop tools and strategies to keep music in school. And today, I'm going to be interviewing producer, songwriter, and multi-instrumentalist Jared Manura. Let's go.
I don't wanna break your heart, but I don't wanna waste my time. I don't wanna lead you on, so I'm just gonna worry about mine.
So I'm here at 604 Records in their main recording studio with Jared.
Hey.
And I have one important question for you.
Yeah?
Do you actually know what each one of these buttons do?
Bro, I work in Ableton. I have no clue what this thing does, man. Like, it's really just here for looks, you know? It makes me look important.
So a little bit of background about Jared. So Jared's not only an incredibly accomplished musician, but you also had like a 13-year career playing with Carly Rae Jepsen.
I guess our first show was, I think, New Year's going into 2010. And I've been with her since. I went to school for a couple of years and while still playing in town for other people. And then she asked me to come back right as Call Me Maybe was kind of starting up. And that was great timing for me, obviously. And yeah, I've been with her since then, I guess.
So what got you into wanting to be a producer? Like, were you producing before you were doing the session work, or did it kind of come after?
When we started touring more heavily, I wasn't producing a lot. I was mostly focusing on practicing, playing, and also, you know, just being like a traveler, essentially, you know, just kind of living and, you know, experiencing everything about going to all these different countries. And then once we had done that for a couple of years, it was more, okay, I'm going to open up my Pro Tools instead of like going for a walk. Once I switched over to Ableton, I think that's when my whole world opened up from like, oh, okay, like it made it more fun to produce, I guess, kind of wherever we were. So like there are so many like fantastic producers that have been on Pro Tools forever. And I just felt like Ableton was just more creative. And so I started to produce more like just in hotel rooms, just on my own. And just trying to take the time and just kind of grind through, so, you know, learning production, I guess.
How long did it take you to get to a point where you really felt like you were pretty competent?
Maybe 2 years of doing it almost every day. I feel like I got to a point where I could make the sounds that I wanted to hear, essentially. So it took a long time, but I mean, 2 years is actually not that long, but like doing it every day, it kind of feels long, but I feel like it was totally worth the work, you know?
And now when you go about creating music, because you do have the obviously background in jazz, classical, being like a really competent player, do you find when you write a new song that you rely more on, you know, instruments to get the inspiration, or do you go right into the box and use like Splice or something like that to start? What's your process like?
I feel like every day is different. Sometimes I really feel like playing guitar and, you know, putting on some random effects and see if anything comes out of it. And sometimes I don't want to play anything and I just want kind of like an easy, instant inspiration. And then I'll go through Splice and work on like chopping samples and doing that kind of thing. Cause I feel like sometimes I get bored of my own ideas too, you know? So especially when you do it every day, it's nice to get some inspiration from somewhere else as well. But sometimes it's just a matter of pulling in a random like synth VST, like pull up a random preset and just go like that too. And then the background with playing will help with that for sure.
Totally. I guess you just use that as a foundation and then you just build on top of it, right?
Exactly. I don't necessarily want to rely on my playing only because then it can sound a little bit too complicated. And, you know, I feel like I'm always trying to simplify my music that I'm working on and my process as well. So,
how do you think your childhood has shaped the way you make music today?
I think it definitely played a huge part in just shaping my tastes. Like I grew up listening to primarily like Nirvana, Green Day, Weezer, The Offspring, you know, kind of grunge alternative bands. And I feel like I still gravitate and I'm drawn towards like alternative music. And it doesn't necessarily mean like alternative rock, like the genre, but stuff that's like a little bit off center and that's very kind of individual. I am still drawn towards, whether it's, you know, it could be like Pink Panthers or it could be, you know, Clairo or something like that, or even like Charlie XCX. Like I would categorize all those artists as like doing something different, which is really cool. And I feel like that's always something that I strive towards and just something that I'm drawn to, I guess.
What inspires you when you're creating music, and how do you translate that inspiration into the music you're making?
What inspires me most would be working with other people, really. It's just great to get into a room with one or more people and you just kind of like having a talk, like you're just talking about your life. It could be anything, not necessarily music related. And then, you know, someone picks up a guitar and starts something, and then you kind of snowball it from there. And after like an hour or two or more, you know, you just have a song. And I really like that process of finding inspiration just through collaboration, I guess. And even if you bring an idea into a session, just having someone else there to bounce ideas off of so you don't get into like your overthinking self, I think is really helpful, especially for me who is like, I can be super scatterbrained and like not knowing what's a good idea, what's a bad idea. And just, again, having the feedback like in person, I think is really helpful for me. And I think helpful for just to feel a community, you know, it's more fun with other people usually, you know, but if I'm by myself, which, you know, happens all the time, like you're making beats, you're doing song starts, this type of thing, I feel like just randomness I try to embrace as much as possible. Try not to think too much. You can set like a time limit, like half an hour, I'm just going to throw in a couple presets or a splice loop and put like 3 effects on each thing without even listening to it, and just start playing around and until you find a spark or some sort of inspiration that you like the sound of, and then you can kind of go from there.
How do you stay inspired and overcome creative blocks?
The best technique for me to get out of, you know, creative block is just listening to music that I've never heard before. Sometimes it's even fun to just almost like play a little game with yourself, as in, let's say you are listening to a playlist and like Casey Musgraves comes up, and then you can imagine, okay, what would it sound like if Casey Musgraves wrote a song for Travis Scott? And just try to use like some random, like not similar genres, and just try to meld them together in a way that is just for fun, essentially. And so that's what I'll do to try to overcome creative block, as opposed to just doing like the same things, you know, just trying, just listening to new music that I've never heard before, essentially.
If you could give some advice to someone who's brand new to producing music, what would it be?
If I was going to start from scratch, I would start by recreating songs that I really love. And then once you get a certain amount of technical ability, then you can start breaking whatever rules that you think there are. I think that's important too, to start developing your own voice and melding genres and that type of thing. But again, if I was just starting, just recreating, I think is a great place to start. Hey guys, so here's a quick tip on what I like to do with vocals sometimes, where I just want to add energy to a certain section. So just as a reference, this is what the vocal sounds like.
I don't wanna break your heart, but I don't wanna waste my time.
So what I'll do is I'll create a new track here. I will copy the lead vocal. And what this track is an octave up. And it has some reverb, a little bit of EQ, just shaving off some highs and lows, and a bit of compression. And it's usually a pretty long reverb. Let's see what this one is. About 6 seconds, 6.5 seconds or so. So this is what the vocals sound like together with our lead and our octave up.
I don't wanna break your heart, but I don't wanna waste my time. I don't wanna lead you on.
And as you can see, I've sidechained this octave up to our lead vocal, which means when our lead vocal is playing, it ducks out of the way. And then when the lead vocal stops, it kind of just fills that space with, an octave up reverb. So that's my quick tip of the day.
I just want to give a massive shout out to the Edith Lando Virtual Learning Center for all their support in making this content. Thanks for watching, keep creating, and we'll see you in the next video.